All right, we're going to try to go through the ramp start procedure in 4.37. I will preface this by saying I almost never do the ramp starts. When I come to play the game, I rarely take the time to go do the ramp starts because I want to get in and play the game. So I usually start at taxi or something like that. But we'll go ahead and give it a try. I do frequently like to pause. The ramp start procedure is long. If you guys haven't done it, it does take a while to get through. And it's not that hard to get down. The checklists help that are in BMS, but the checklists also include a lot of things that in the game you don't necessarily need to do. In real life, starting up in F16, yeah, you probably want to do all those things. But in the game, you can typically skip a lot of the things, especially the tests. Now, I know BMS has implemented failures into some of the game so that you actually can fail some of the tests. I don't know what the deal is with that because I haven't kept up on it, but generally speaking, I tend to skip the tests and just go through the startup procedure. What we're going to do is actually go through the startup procedure in the training manual. So if you see me kind of looking to the side, I'm probably looking at the manual. Actually, you know what I'll go ahead and do is I'll just move the manual. But because I have track IR on, you are going to see my head, or the camera, I guess, moving around quite a bit. So excuse me for that. But track IR is, or some sort of head tracking device, is really nice for playing this game because you can obviously move yourself around side to side, forwards, and change your view in the cockpit. And then obviously looking around as you play the game it's a big one as well. So we'll go ahead and get started with this. Before engine start, checklists. The nice thing about this newer version of BMS, I love that they actually have the checklists right here on your knee boards. That's so convenient. Very nice. We're not going to go through this cockpit interior checklist. We're just going to go straight to... Oh, I'm paused. Of course I can't switch pages. Normal procedures. Okay. So, looking back toward the left console, we start by setting the systems correctly so they can begin working from the moment we power the main generator. Note that all external lighting is implemented since 4.36. Very nice. You will not see the lights come on until the main generator comes on, but you're supposed to set your external lighting as follows. For a ramp start, day, good weather, master to norm. Oh, yeah, unpause it, dum-dum. Master to norm, anti-collisions to 1. Okay. Position is to steady, wing tail is to bright, fuselage is to off, and form is 100% up, AR with 0%. So that is set. Moving up, we quickly check the aux comm panel to check that the CNI knob is in the backup position. One step further up to check the master fuel switch is to the master position, which it is. And engine feed knob to normal. Battery power is enabled by switching this to battery. These lights should come up. So I'm going to pause it so we're not actually draining our battery. What it says here is battery power is enabled with the main power switch to BAT on the electrical panel. The Alexis caution light and the fail main gen and standby gen lights on the electrical panel, there's those right there, should come on with battery power enabled. The other, so the what we're seeing over here, Alexis, that one right there, electrical systems, it's letting us know that it's not working. Okay, we need to test the battery by moving down to the test panel and holding the FLCS power test switch out of norm to test. Let's read through this. This check is eye candy and is not mandatory. So we're not going to worry about that, but just you can do the test there, I guess, if you want to. We'll leave the main power switch and battery for now. We will start the engines after we finish the pre-start checks. So we're going to go up to the comms panel, okay, which is right, whoa, there we go, right up in here. Rotate COM 1 volume out of the off clockwise off clockwise to the 12 o'clock position and do the same for COM 2. So COM 1 and 2, roughly 12 o'clock. Okay. Easy. Note that the first step out of the... whatever, we don't need to go through that. So we want to make sure that the modes for these are set to SQL, which it looks like they are. They don't have a function anyway with the CNI switch in the backup position. Well, that's fine. MSL and threat volumes to the 12 o'clock position. I generally just leave those where they are anyway. And then the ILS knob needs to be powered for the ILS system to work. So ILS here, if we want to use it, we're going to need to, of course, turn it on. Intercom volume is working as well, and the controls the level of all sounds normally heard in the pilot headset, which is pretty cool. That's already cranked all the way up. So now we're going to move to the backup UHF panel, which is this guy here. Am I in battery power? Yes, I am. Okay. So we're going to turn this to both. Okay, that's the first thing. And then we're going to set this to the guard frequency. Let's see. In this case, let's see. What does this say? Let's just read this. In the preset mode, the radio is tuned to the selected channel, which is 6 by default. Okay, so that's your preset there, if we put it in preset. And guard sets the backup UHF to the guard frequency. Please note that the F-16 only has a backup radio for UHF, not VHF. Indeed, before switching the CNI to CNI, the backup UHF radio is your only means of communication. In this case, the ground frequency 273.525 might be entered in the manual frequency window by clicking the relevant knobs. So 273.525. Once set, communication with Gunsan ground will be available in backup mode. Select COM 1 panel of the UFC. It will display the following page. The UFC is not even on, so we won't worry about that. Okay, nothing to set in the front panels, so we're going to go over to the lighting panels. Consoles doesn't work. These we can turn on. Don't know if we need to or not, but we can. And then what else? Next item is to turn the air source knob to norm. This one can be a little hard one to find. It's one of the reasons I love having some sort of head tracking on, because if you just lean slightly forward, you get the air source knob right there. When you don't, it's sort of hidden behind this, armrest. So that's nice. Proceed further aft and right and place the anti-ice switch to on. Okay, on. This is part of the anti-ice test sequence. And then we're going to go back and start the engines. So we move the main switch to main power. Okay. And then we are going to go ahead and close the canopy. Switch right under here. Right click it and it will close it. See the canopy coming down there. Click on the little spider here to close that. So that's our canopy closed. Very easy to do that. Okay, and then we are going to, I think, fire up the JFS. Yep. We want to do start 2. Start 1 provides a 50% chance of engine start. Start 2, which it says is normally used in cold weather conditions, gives a better chance of engine start. uses both JFS brake accumulators simultaneously to start the engine. So we'll just go ahead and do our start sequence. So start 2, that's a right click to make it go down. You should immediately start hearing some sound, and then our engine RPM needle should start moving up. Nope. There it goes. And then once it gets to, this is the part, it's not really that difficult, but there's a lot of checks you can do, different gauges you can check and things like that. I don't generally worry about it too much, but once the RPM gets to a roughly 20 to 25%, we need to move the throttle to its idle position, which most of you are not going to actually do that with your throttle. If you have a HOTAS, you're going to hit the sort of key binding to move, which is idle detent, and that will allow the throttle to move up into its idle position. You can see it over here. Right now the throttle is in its farthest back position, and in order for it to move forward, you have to hit the idle detent, and as I do that, you can see the throttle move forward. That's now the idle position, which generally, if you're using an actual HOTAS, the throttle all the way back is idle. It's not actually no throttle, if that makes any sense. It's also not super relevant. So now that the engine is starting up, there we go. We can see a lot of our warning lights are starting to go off. Our lights, our panel lights are on. So I'm actually going to turn those back off because we really don't need them. Okay, and as things continue to start up, we're not going to do the test. There's a couple more tests to do here. Again, I don't ever do them. So then it's moved to the avionics power panel to begin INS alignment and power up all the other things. So MMC, ST, STA, MFD, UFC, GPS, and DL. Okay, so come back here, we'll turn our INS to norm. We'll flip on all of our other switches back here, very easy. Okay. The INS needs time to start up, so I always come up here at this point and turn on my HUD symbology. The DED should also come on. We might have to turn it on. Okay, so move forward to the sensor panel, power the FCR, and place the radar altimeter in standby. There we go. FCR power, radar altimeter to standby. Okay, DED is coming on, and we can see it is going through the alignment process. So perfect. Depending on the loadout, you can also power the left and right hard points. We don't need to do that in the training because there are no left and right. Those are just the chin stations sort of under the fuselage itself, not your actual hard points out here. Either way, training mission doesn't matter. You can adjust your seat position. We're not going to bother with that. Moving to the center console. Quickly check that the INS has started aligning. Look at the DED. Yep. We need... I guess I should have left this up. There we go. DED brightness cranked up. Okay, so that is aligning. Switch the HUD on, which we did. Click the fault acknowledge to review. Okay, PFLD and reset the master caution light so you are aware. The next time it comes on, try to reset the MC light the master caution light as soon as you acknowledge a fault so you don't miss the next one, but never reset it without knowing why it came on in the first place, of course. It's common to have an FLCS fault at engine start because the FLCS detects a low pressure and assumes the ISA failed. Some pilots automatically reset the FLCS after engine start, even before the PFLD is able to report the FLCS fail message. Others may wait till it, okay, whatever. Either way, you need to reset the FLCS to clear the fault. Also clear the maintenance fault list on the MFD test page with OSB 3. The PFLD will display common ramp start faults and clear at the same time. Okay. MFD test page. Oh, yep, unpause it. MFD test page. Okay, clear. So that, okay. Move back from the left console and the aux comm panel. Set the IFF master knob in standby. Rotate the CNI switch from backup to UFC. Data cartridge. Okay, so now we need to go load our data cartridge. So we come down here to this, DTE, and load. That will start loading the data cartridge. That should also, here we go, so that should be loaded. Now our communications should be correct. So we switch it to preset 2, hopefully. That will get us on the ground station. And we can quickly check that by hitting tower, ground page. If these are lighting up blue, then we are on the correct frequency. So that's very nice. We also just got the text for a ground call. We haven't heard it yet because I'm paused. But if you're starting to hear communications on that, then you're probably on the right channel too. So we've set our communications where we want it for that. Yep, there we go, there it is. VHF radio is set to preset 15, which is what we want. Okay, and then checks. So we're going to do the FLCS bit test. Okay. Before doing that, we need to cycle the flight controls to assist in warming up the hydraulic fluid and removing air from the system. So check that all FLCS panel switches are down, which they are. Okay. Okay, we're not going to worry about that, but so before we do really anything, pause.
3-0.
Let's go. Whoa. Calm down. Zoom. There. So we're going to work our control surfaces for a little while. And we're trying to build up the hydraulic pressure. Okay, the one checklist I saw said do this for about 20 seconds. And then we're going to flip the FLCS to bit. So right down here, bit, let it run. And what does this say? The green run light comes on. The flight controls are tested in sequence. Progress being monitored by looking at the cockpit to flight controls. Cool. All right, there. It came back and it said fail. During the FLCS bit warning FLCS bit warn will be displayed in the HUD, so during the test. Takeoff landing configuration warning light may also flash. At the end of the self-test, the switch will revert back to its original position and the run light will go out. Occasionally, the test may fail, and the amber fail light will be illuminated. I don't feel like it's occasionally. I feel like it fails almost every time I do this. So either I'm doing something wrong, or it's more than occasionally. If that happens, the only way to reset it is to perform the bit test again. On later blocks, the status of the FLCS bit is displayed in the FLCS MFD page. Oh, one thing I may have forgotten to do is reset. Okay. And then, whoa, don't start that. I'll work the controls again, make sure that we try to work all of the air out of the system. And then we'll run the test again. So click that, boom, let it run. check our trim. Make sure that this is good. Everything is centered. Okay. Test the air-to-air refueling system. So it says if your mission could include air-to-air refueling, you need to test the AR system. On the fuel panel, open the AR door by flipping the air refueling switch to open, and check the right indexer for a blue ready light. Hit the disconnect button. Ready should be replaced by an amber DISC indication. After 3 seconds, DISC should go out and the blue ready light should return. So we'll click that, open. We have our ready light. We click disconnect. There we go. And it should go back to ready. Good. And then we can close this. And in the meantime, our FLCS bit test completed itself. Our FLCS warning went away over here. And we should be able to acknowledge that fault and make that go away. So, looking good. I closed my air refueling door since after we ran that test, so we are good. While you're there, check the audio panels one last time for correct volumes. Yep, look good to me. Okay, sec check. Again, I never do this. Check our speed brakes. So I like to get over here so I can see the little speed brake icon right there. So we're going to open our speed brakes. The closed is replaced by those dots. Speed brakes should be open. If we go back here, we can see that. Hit the close button, they start coming back down.
Contact tower for takeoff. Switch to 29230.
And if we peek back under there, they are closed. Again, so very easy. CMDS panel. So we're going to start flipping on our RWR, jammer, chaff, flares. Those two don't do anything. We're going to put this mode in standby. Since we're in a training mission, there's really not any need to have our chaff and flares actually powered up. But if you were going to go on a mission, you would probably want to do that. Okay. Program knob, we can select it. Again, I'm not really worried about that at the moment. Moving up to this panel, we are going to select Cat 1 or Cat 3 according to your loadout. We are in Cat 1 because we have basically nothing on here. Switch the brake switch to anti-skid, which it already is. Gear handle is up. Down? It's down. Okay. Oh, wait, that's the hook. Duh. Gear handle is down. 3 green lights are on, so we're good there. The threat warning prime, we're going to run the bit test on that, but first we need to power it up with the little power switch over here. Of course, you have to not be paused in order to do that. So power this up. Here we go. We are going to run the bit test, so press the sys-test button and check the indication on the RWR displays. Then check the missile launch indicator and audio by depressing the ender. So sys-test. Okay. Missile launch. Why isn't that working? Is this off? No. No. Okay. What does it say? Depress the system test and check the indication on the RWR displays. Then check the missile launch indicator and audio by depressing the indicator. Right. Trying. It's not doing anything. None of this is really doing anything. Okay, there we go. Okay, that worked. Hit the handoff button. Okay, this is RWR is set up. Then it tells you to go through some setup for things, set your A low and your MSL floor. So we can go do that. Go to page 2, A low. Let's see, it 14,000 feet.
Mud Hen 4 ship F-16s. Request taxi.
sorry,
Good morning,
that,
Mud
leave
Hand
that
4, your number 5 for
14,000
departure.
feet.
Full
I've
present
already set all these, so
Give
they're
way
good
to
to go.
Ramrod 6-2 F5.
We're going to
Taxiing
go to the
Alpha.
TILS page and set our TACAN to 75 X-ray, which is the TACAN for Gunsan Airport. We want to leave that in there. We also changed the band to X. Done there. And we set it into TR mode out of AA mode. So all that should be set. We have the runway frequency for the ILS system set, 110.3. And then we're going to set a joker level of fuel. So in order to do that, we need to go to the list page, bingo page, and we want to set it for 3,000 pounds. Very easy there. We're not going to go through the fuel test procedures. We do want to check the anti-ice system, and we also want to check to make sure that our INS is being aligned. So let's go back to, not that page, list 6 is INS page. It says it's ready. We can also see the align right down here that's telling us it's ready, so we could flip that at any point. So go down here, move over, and flip that to nav. Now the next part is the aircraft lights can be set for taxi. Switch your taxi light and anti-collision lights. Taxi light and anti-collision lights to on. So taxi light, oh, pause every time. Taxi light, nope, down, there we go. Anti-collision lights, okay, all this should already be on. Setting it to flash. There we go. And then the anti-ice system needs to be checked. So the anti-ice system has been on in the ramp test. To check the anti-ice system was running properly, we turn it to off and check that our FTIT decreases by at least 10 degrees. Okay. So it says in BMS, in BMS it translates to a temperature difference of about 40 degrees, which is quite visible and perfect for checking anti-ice operation. So we want to check where the FTIT temperature is, and it's pretty much right on the 5, just to the left side of the 5. So we're going to flip our anti-ice switch to off. We should see the temperature decrease. It definitely decreased. Now it's to the right side there. Once we confirm that that's working, we put it to auto.
4-1, contact tower for takeoff. Switch to 2.
And then we check our oxygen system. We're not going to actually check it. We're just going to click it to on so that the oxygen system is on. Power up and align the HMCS. So turn on the HMCS.
Ramrod 6.
There we go. Since 4.36, you have to align the HMCS to use it properly and get accurate HUD information. If able, a 15-minute warm-up is required for optimal alignment. This alignment process must be redone constantly during the flight after certain conditions like heavy G maneuvers. The offset between HUD and HMCS data can be significant when the alignment process is not executed properly. So after the recommended warm-up time, which apparently, if it takes a 15-minute warm-up time, why didn't we turn our HMCS on like at the beginning of the whole procedure? I don't know. It doesn't make sense why it comes in here. But anyway, we go to list, MISC page, which is 0, and then we go to HMCS page, okay, which is, we hit this to go to HMCS page, and then we sequence over one to get to the align page. Okay, course label is highlighted. HMCS shows ready. Hold on. There are 3 alignment modes available. We will start with the course mode. When mode is selected, IMCEL is depressed, with the asterisk around the course label, course aligned bore sight is entered and the following occurs. Course label is highlighted on the DED. HMCS shows ready. HMCS displays the course bore sight cross. The HUD displays an aligning cross in the center total field of view, and the SOI disappears. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So pause it. Here we go. Hit that guy. Okay. And then what we want to do is move your head to match the HMCS cross with the HUD cross. Okay, there we go. And then we are going to hit cursor enable to start the alignment process. Okay, the HUD will indicate aligning. Hold your head position so both crosses are matching as close as possible. When the alignment is successful, the HUD will show align OK or aligned fail if not successful. So we want to get it lined up. Hit the cursor enable. Cursor enable. Aligning. Hold it. And it says align OK. Okay, apparently that was okay. The two other alignment modes are used for fine alignment. This is especially important when using the HMCS for air-to-ground operations. When IMCEL is depressed with the asterisks around the AZEL label, the AZEL bore sight mode is entered, and the following will occur. AZEL label highlights in the DED. HMCS displays FADX and DY. HMCS shows 2 alignment crosses along with 4 edge of display segments. HUD displays an aligning cross in the CTFOV. SOI goes away. HMCS display stabilizes on the HUD. Deflection of the cursor XY slews the 2 crosses to align them on the HUD bore cross, plus IMCEL again to de-highlight and exit the AZEL mode after your alignment. So let's go ahead and try that. So here, IMCEL, there. So IMCEL here, there we go. Okay, and we move our cursor to try to get them aligned. Something like that, okay. And then when IMCEL is depressed with the asterisks around the roll label, the roll bore sight mode is entered and the following occurs. So roll highlights a HMCS displays FAD roll. HMCS displays 2 alignment crosses along with 4 edge of display segments. The cursor action for D roll is left and right. Cursor inputs to the left move the lower fine alignment cross to the left, resulting in clockwise rotation, and cursor inputs to the right move the lower fine alignment cross to the right, resulting in clockwise rotation. Press IMCEL again to de-highlight and exit the roll. So this does say at the very end of all this, note that it is recommended to execute the course alignment pre-takeoff and the AZEL plus roll fine alignment post-takeoff. Fine alignment needs to be executed every 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and do the fine alignment just so we can see what that looks like. Okay, I see. So let's move it back so it's pretty much aligned. Okay, and then boom, done. There we go. And now the ramp start is complete. We need to arm our ejection seat, which is very hard to see. This lever here is the ejection seat arm handle. Right click on it somewhere over here. There we go. And now it is armed. You can see our seat armed. Warning light that was on over here has gone away. Enable nose wheel steering. Easy there. Apply tow brakes or set the parking brake and ask the ground crew to remove the chocks. So we'll go ahead and set our parking brake, call the tower, and we will ask them to remove chocks. And you can see that went away up here in the corner. Chocks done. Easy there. Moving down. There are a few things left to do to finish this training mission in order to be ready to taxi and go to the next mission. You need to first get the QNH the local pressure setting, the winds, and the active runway from ATC. All this is done through the ATC menu you just opened. You can ask for each item of information separately on the common page of the ATC menu, or use the ATIS system. So we'll go ahead and use the ATIS system. It's a VHF frequency, and it's 120.225 for Gunsan. Enter this frequency into the COM2 radio. So we'll go ahead and hit COM2, and we'll enter 120.225, or 22 in this case. Hit enter. Expect visual approach.
Wind, 320 degrees, 13 knots, gusts 22.
4, taxiing.
Visibility 10 kilometers or more. Sky conditions, clouds, view 5,000 feet.
230.
Temperature, +18 degrees Celsius. Altimeter, 2984 inches. Gunsan, information Bravo. Runway 36. Expect visual approach.
So it just went through a whole bunch of information. It says ATIS will give you the name of the airport, the active runway, the wind, visibility, clouds, temperature, and altimeter settings. A lot of that stuff, honestly, I disregard. There's probably some, I'm sure if you're better at this game than I am, some of that makes more sense. But one thing we really want to know is the active runway, which is runway 36. The winds are good to know, but you can also activate the winds on your DED display by simply sequencing
320
over.
degrees, 13 knots, gusts 22.
So it's 320 degrees at 13 knots. So that's good to know because our runway is aligned to 356, basically due north. So we're going to be having winds pushing us from the left to the right. So during takeoff, it's good to know that. They'll also tell you that at takeoff, though, so it's not a huge thing. The other thing we want to know is the altimeter setting. So 2984 is what it said on there. We set that so it sets our altimeter to 0 when we're actually on the ground. That's a local altimeter setting. When we get in the air and up to 14,000 feet, which is the transition altitude for the Korea theater, when you get to 14,000 feet, you want to set that to the normal theater sort of standard pressure, which is 2992. And with that, we're basically ready to taxi out. So let's go ahead and do that. With the ramp start completed, you are ready to taxi. ATC will provide information about the expected taxi time on UHF-2. So we're not going to, so let's go ahead and unpause it. We're going to reset
10 kilometers
our
or more.
VHF to
Sky conditions.
channel 15, which will turn the ATIS system off for us. Make sure our displays are set up the way I want. I always like to run this out to roughly 30. There we go. All right. So, what is this? Is an informal message. It does not require confirmation by the flight lead on UHF. This call does not indicate that you have clearance to taxi yet. Always wait for ATC to give you clearance. Normally you should be ready no later than 6 minutes before your fragged takeoff time. Since 4.37, you get detailed information of where you're located at each airbase when you enter 3D. So right here it tells us our chocks are in place. I thought we removed those. Apparently I hit EPU switch. Whoops. So we'll have to remove the chocks. So let's just go ahead and do that before I forget. But it also tells us we're using runway 36. We taxiway Papa, and we're at parking spot 0. So remove chocks. There we go. I did want to see all that before it went away, though. Information about the parking lot number, as well as the taxiway you are located at. And which runway is active. So all very useful things. Ironically, none of the information in the manual for this is correct, but we won't worry about that for now. Unless, is that supposed to be a new mission? No? Okay. Well, we won't worry about it. The crew chief removes the chocks, gives you a salute. From now, your jet is yours and you must bring it back in one piece. The first thing to do is ask Gunsan ground for clearance to taxi. Okay? And then we are also supposed to set our lights to flash. Are they on flash? Yes. So let's go ahead and call the tower. So, taxi for departure.
Goblin 2, Singleton, F-16s. Request taxi. Good morning, Goblin 2. You're number 4 for departure. Taxi Papa Alpha. And hold short, runway 36.
So, taxiway Papa Alpha, hold short, runway 36. Very easy. The initial call is quite important because it places your aircraft in the ATC queue, and the ATC will light up the airport lighting system and keep them on as long as you're in the queue. So if you want lights to be able to taxi, that's a pretty important one, especially at night. Obviously, during the day, it doesn't make as much of a difference. But we have received taxi clearance, so we are going to move our jet forward, and we're going to follow the instructions that we were given. Okay, we're headed towards runway 36. We already know that, but we need to take taxiway Papa, which is, you can see there a sign with a P. That's showing us that this taxiway right here is taxiway Papa. I need to zoom out a little bit for the purposes of actually flying this plane. There we go. And we're going to take it to taxiway Alpha. So get it lined up on the line here, and we'll just continue taxiing down. This is one of our crossing taxiways, and if you look down there, you can see the sign. It says Bravo. So we're going to continue further down until we get to Alpha. Now, when we get down there, they do have the end of runway area set up for use, which is actually pretty nice. Okay, so we're going to taxi to the end of runway area. I don't know how much the braking system is actually implemented now, but we don't want to overuse our brakes because it can cause the jet to brake, essentially. At the end of the runway, we're going to perform takeoff checks, and then once we have clearance to actually taxi onto the runway, we will do so. Since we are the only person in our flight, we are going to take the end of runway parking area closest to the taxiway, or the runway, or we would at least, if there aren't a bunch of planes already in our way.
29230.
Which you can see here, we have a bunch of planes already there. Some F5s, 1 and 2 there. We also have 1, 2 F-16s, 3 F-16s, and 4 F-16s there. So there's definitely some traffic down here. That's okay. I think the traffic is nice because it adds a sense of life to these airports. And I have to imagine in real life, when you have operations going on, these airports and these taxiways, runways, all of them are busy places. There goes the first of the F5s taking off. The second one is lined up, probably about ready to take off as well. These F-16s are actually sort of in our way, so we can't actually get to the end of runway area, not the end of the world. We'll just come to a stop here. I like to go ahead and set my parking brake so I don't have to worry about holding it. And the parking brake automatically comes off when you advance your throttle far enough. So that's a nice factor. What does the manual have to say? So end of runway checks might sound superfluous in a simulation, but in an intensive scenario where AI aircraft may be slow to taxi out to the runway, it makes sense to taxi early and wait as close to the runway as possible. By taking the parking spots away from the taxiway, you allow room for AI to pass without disturbing them. That is actually important in this game, because if you're parked like where this guy is, you will block the other AI and they won't be able to take off. The airport will not give you takeoff clearance until it's a certain time before your takeoff time. So you have to, if you're going to be parked at the end of the runway for a while, you don't want to block other AI flights that should be taking off. Okay. This is also a good spot to complete anything in the checklist that we didn't already do at the ramp. We have a master caution light on. Oh, that's because of our anti-skid. Yep. you can do your setting weapon release parameters, bore sighting your FLIR, and checking your targeting pod, things like that. A lot of other stuff you can do there. Once we arrive at the end of runway picture, we are supposed to set our nose gear light to off, and our external lighting goes from anti-collisions go to off, and position lights go to steady instead of bright. So that is something that is supposed to happen. Once we arrive at the EOR, the ground controller will call us and instruct us to switch to tower frequency. You don't have to do it right away, says the manual. It's at your discretion whenever you're ready. You may elect first to do your EOR checks. Once we complete all of those checks and things, we switch to the tower frequency. Then the tower will instruct us when it's time to either hold short runway 36 or line up and wait, which would be move actually onto the runway but wait for takeoff clearance, or we'll just straight clear you to take off. Any of those three things can happen, and a lot of it depends on your timing. The tower, quote unquote tower in this game, knows your takeoff time. So if you get held up behind AI and you're actually past your takeoff time, which happens unfortunately quite a bit, it will often just clear you to take off. Just so you know, as soon as we leave the EOR and we're taxiing to the runway, either hold short or actually onto the runway, we want to switch our lights. The nose gear light goes to landing, and the external lights, actually anti-collisions, come back on, and the tail position or the position lights go to flashing again. I do not mess with the light changes. I realize that is something that you, in theory, probably should do. In real life, certainly, you would do that. I'm sure there are reasons for it. Flashing lights mean one thing, steady lights mean another thing. It's a way of communicating to other pilots, etc., etc. But in the game, rarely do I mess with it. So we'll go ahead and switch this to off and put it on landing. These 4 F-16s, I'm sure, are all in front of us. So now that they have moved forward, we are going to try to move forward into the end of runway area. I have no idea what my takeoff time is for this mission, honestly. Normally, if I was flying an actual mission, I would pay attention to things like takeoff time, the schedulings, and all that kind of stuff. But for the training mission, I usually do not. So I don't know what my takeoff time is. We're going to go ahead and pull into the first EOR slot.
Tower for takeoff. Switch to 29230.
And there you can see he told us to switch to the tower frequency, 29230. So I will go ahead and do that so that we are ready. We need to let the tower know we're ready for departure, so we hit that.
Goblin 2, Singleton, F-16s, ready for departure.
Goblin 2, hold short.
Okay, there we got the hold short call, so it wants us to move to the runway, but hold short. So we'll just follow our line here. Hold short means do not cross this line, pretty much. So we get up close to the line, but then we apply our brakes. You want to get close enough that the tower recognizes you are there, but you don't really want to go over it because you're not supposed to. F-16's taken off in front of us. Anti-collisions to 1, lights to flash. Those things have all stayed the same because I didn't bother to turn them off at the end of runway.
Mud N4, contact departure.
If you start with your ramp start, you may get to the end of runway really early. If you start with taxiing start, you're usually not going to get to the end of the runway that early. That's why I often don't mess with the light changes, because you're not, I am usually not, in the end of runway area for very long. Okay. All those F-16s took off nicely. We should be getting our clearance to move on to the runway and take off in a minute. The main thing we're going to do is line up.
Goblin 2, Kunsan Tower, wing 320 at 6 knots, runway 36. You are cleared for takeoff.
Okay, so they gave us clearance to go ahead and get on the runway and actually cleared us to take off, which probably means we are after our takeoff time, but no worries. We're not going to hurry in this case. I'm not going to go through everything in the manual on takeoff. Takeoff is generally pretty easy. I usually line up with the runway, come to a stop, and then there's a few things I'm going to do real quick. I try to be lined up with the runway as close as possible. This is where it's nice to know your runway heading, in this case 356, and you can see from my compass right here, we are at 356. At this point, I like to go ahead and turn my radar on. I don't know if you're actually supposed to do this at this point, but that's what I always do. And I also want to turn my radar altimeter to on. Those are things I like to do before I get off the ground. You also can turn your IFF mode to norm. There we go. And then from here, it's basically just takeoff. You can use programs like Weapon Delivery Planner to know what your takeoff speed is. But we are very, very light in this training scenario. So our takeoff speed is going to be very low, or our rotation speed, I should say. Okay. Apparently for the training scenario, it's roughly 120 knots. So what I like to do here, very simple, I'm going to put my wheel brakes on. I'm going to spool my engine up to roughly 90% RPM, make sure that everything is looking okay, my nozzles are moving, my temperature doesn't go too high. I let my brakes off, advance my throttles to either full mill power or afterburner, and pretty much as soon as I get a decent roll going, I'm going to take my nose wheel steering off. Now this all happens really quick in the training scenario because you are so light. And you have to be really careful not to hit over 300 knots before your gear comes up.
Goblin 2-1, contact departure.
So pretty much as soon as you're off the ground, you want to start pulling your gear up, especially in the training scenario. When you have combat stores on board, you will take much longer to get up to speed. You'll take much longer to get up to your gear speed. So you don't have to be as worried about it, but in the training scenario, it happens quickly. Rotation speed was about 125 in this case. It was like 160 before I rotated, just because everything happened so quickly. And now, once we're in the air, it's going to tell us to switch to departure. So on pause, quickly switch our radio over to the departure frequency, which is preset 4, if you have your radio channels set correctly. And then we go to departure, report airborne.
Goblin 2, airborne. Singleton, F-16s, 1000.
They'll tell us to
Goblin
depart
2,
on a heading of
departure.
355.
Heading 355. Resume on navigation.
And resume on navigation, which once you get resume on navigation, you are pretty much on your own. You can do kind of whatever you want. So I like to bring my speed up, which is really easy with this light of an aircraft. I'm climbing to get to whatever altitude I want to get to. The only other real thing that I worry about in this case is as I'm on my climb, once I get to 14,000 feet, which I'll go ahead and put the afterburner in, we'll climb really quickly because this plane is so light. 40-degree climb angle. So as we pass through 14,000 feet, we want to switch our altimeter over to the sort of standard pressure for the theater, which in this case is 2992. So we just roll that up, 2992. There we go. So now our barometric altitude should be correct. And that's it. Start up and take off. Really easy.